Welcome back to The Prenup. I'm Adriana, and I'm so excited for today's guest. She's one of the leading wedding stylists in the world. She's done some of the most high-profile weddings ever, including Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner's wedding, which, believe it or not, is not even close to the most interesting thing about her. She's been named the top designer by Vogue, HARPERS, BAZAAR, Martha Stewart, Brides, just to name a few. She's a huge role model of mine and such an inspiration. I'm so excited to have her on the show.
Hello.
Hi, Joy. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Does it sound okay?
It sounds perfect.
Headphones on, so
No, honestly, I feel like when I'm by myself, I definitely don't need them. And the ones that I've recorded without them sound the same. So it's not.
You're cute.
You're cute. You're more than.
I just got dressed from here up.
Same. If you see the bottom, I still have my leggings on, which probably have like a little bit of makeup on them. Yeah, it's not the best look, but it's like, what can I wear to impress Joy? Because I'm just obsessed with you. I really appreciate you doing this. Seriously, it's like a dream to talk to you, and I don't want to, fan out through the whole thing, but I just want to let you know it's pretty huge for me. So let's get right into it. Just wanted to start with trends because that's kind of everything to brides, and you are one of the biggest trendsetters in the industry. So I don't know if you're even aware of trends because you're kind of making them, which is pretty awesome. But based on what you're inspired by right now and kind of what you're working on, what could you predict would be the trend for, a 2023, 2024 bride?
Good question. Well, thank you for being so kind, by the way. I appreciate that. I don't know. I mean, trends are hard. I definitely can see them happening in the industry. And I won't say that I'm not inspired by things. Like easily I'll see something that maybe I've not done and be inspired by it. But it's hard. Something that I've seen definitely since the pandemic is that everything's more fashion forward. Everything's a little bit less like overdone. It shouldn't look like it has been done too much. Otherwise, it loses that like excitement sort of thing. So if I see anything, I think in terms of trends, I really see people just going for what they want, probably going like more fashion, less like perfect, like I have to have a perfect little wedding.
Yes.
And I personally, at least myself, like my own, I'm not sure if the industry is going this way, but I want to see like more drama, like just like, don't worry about being sweet. Don't worry about being perfect and traditional and, lasting the test of time. Instead, I see people, at least myself, wanting to be a little bit more bold, choosing colors that are not like those safe, sort of traditional pastels and whites, but really like going for color, going for feeling. I'm sorry, that's my cat. He's going to keep talking during this whole thing.
Oh, I didn't even hear him. It's perfect. And he can come with us. I'm sure he has a lot to say too.
He has opinions. Like, no.
What's his name?
No pastels. His name is Haku.
Haku?
Haku.
Oh,
H-A-K-U. Haku.
Oh,
Yeah.
Cutie. Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, in general, that's what I myself see kind of moving into. And I would even say, like, I think as an artist, I feel like my taste has changed. Like, and maybe it's as a result of these trends. Like, I've kind of been like, oh, that's interesting. I haven't seen that before and it's cool. And it like inspires me. So yeah, I just in general think people are like more free. Like, this is my life. I'm going to do what I want. Like, it might be a wedding, but why should it not be like my regular life? Why should I not go for it and make it exciting rather than being safe?
Totally. Oh my God. That's such a good point. And a lot of what I see looks a lot more editorial in the regular bride, but not the fashion magazine, not, a spread, just something that I have to touch on. And I might even edit this out because I don't know how much brides care about this kind of stuff. It's more catered toward, getting them excited about planning, giving them valuable information, but the Anne Barge styling.
Oh,
I didn't even realize that was you until after, I talked to you and, we decided to move forward. But I remember seeing that fashion week and, oh my God, the riding jacket and the accessories. I was just like I can't deal with it. It is so sharp and chic. I just completely died.
Thank you.
But on that note, a lot of brides kind of just what you were saying, really do want to kind of go a little edgier and take a little bit of a risk. But there's also, maybe Aunt Sue and grandma who are like, I
Yes.
have to have some tradition,
Yes.
this and that. So how can you kind of blend those elements of, having that edge while remaining traditional?
Good question. Well, definitely when it comes to fashion, I see people doing it with after party. Like I can see people who are like, yes, I want to be the perfect princess. Like I want to be, like that like perfect quintessential like classic bride for
Yes.
the ceremony, maybe for reception. And as soon as they're able to do something fun, they're like sequins and platforms and bling everywhere, you know.
Yes. I don't know the
So that
brand,
I
but
think,
that
oh, go
tulle
ahead.
dress, do you know what I'm talking about? It's the cinched waist and it's the, like, tulle up top
Oh
and it kind of
yes,
fans
I know what you're
on
talking
either
about.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely a fun style, a lot, and it's something
exactly.
different than you would typically do, a mini dress. That's a
Yes,
good point,
that's
and
what it
even
is. I
sorry,
think that's
Joy.
where people are feeling comfortable. No, no, don't
Yeah,
worry. I think people are feeling so much more comfortable saying, okay, for ceremony, let me be classic and then go wild. I don't know in terms of the rest of design, like not fashion, but like the wedding itself, how people are doing that, kind of like saying, let me appease this part of myself or my family and then let me go wild. It
yeah,
might also be the same sort of thing where they feel like ceremony, keep it traditional, everything else, just like go for it, you
yeah.
know?
Oh, totally, peacocks, feathers, all the goodies.
I love it.
So, in terms of style, what comes first? This is kind of like a chicken or the egg question, but do you recommend that a bride kind of says, "Okay, this is me. I'm maybe a little bit punk rock, or I have this certain style about me. I
Yeah.
definitely want to look a certain way for my day, and I want my venue and my styling to kind of reflect that." Or would you say, you find a place that you fall in love with, and then you kind of tweak your styling to more be in line with that?
That's a really good question. Well, I would say if you want to be happy with what you're doing and if you want to feel like it's you and it's your fiance, go for what is you intrinsically. Like
Yeah.
I think it's definitely super easy. I think as a designer, okay, so that's the difference here. I would say as a designer, I would come into a space and say, what does it feel? What is it? Like
Yes.
what is the character of the space? Who lives here? What are the scents? Like what's the temperature? And then ask myself those questions and then begin to design. But I think it's different for a couple because this is like a real day. This is you, this is your life. So if you fell in love with a space because it's some extension of you or some part of your story, or something, then that's great. But if there's some sort of, if there's like a disconnect between who you are and that, and you're trying all the time to bridge the gap or to adapt just to that thing, I think you lose part of the magic of who you are,
Mhm.
and like
Mhm.
that beauty and what you bring to it and making it feel like authentic. So I would say really evaluate your decisions, evaluate why you fell in love with that space. And if you can't figure it out, and if you're asking yourself, did I just choose this space? And of course, we don't have the luxury, all of us, of choosing spaces just because they're us, right? Sometimes
Right.
it's like budget or guest count or
Of
that's where
course.
our family is. And so I think if you think carefully from the beginning about why you chose that space, think about what it means to you, what it feels to you. Also think about like what is that space itself? Like when it's by itself, before I add all these things, what does it feel like?
Yeah.
Then you can ask yourself the right questions for how to like bridge the gap and make it you, what to do, what not to do, that sort of thing. So
Yeah. You brought up a really good point, and you said, it's this one day, so you're trying to get all of these atmospheric values in line, but I think brides especially are kind of blinded by the pressure of it, and the
yes.
family and the social media, and what do I have to do? What do people expect? And if they really just kind of sat back and said, what reflects my fiance and I, and
Yeah.
what do we love and what do we want, it might be a little bit better. This wasn't a question that I had, but what is the most beautiful venue or space that you've designed a wedding at?
Good question. Gosh. I've been lucky, man. I've been able to design in some of the most amazing spaces. I
I
mean, I would say,
know. I've followed your work. It's
no,
unbelievable.
there are some interiors that are really amazing. And while I love beautiful interiors, to be honest, I think I'm always moved by beautiful landscapes.
Yeah.
So, and usually it's like the last few things that I've done that I'm like, ooh, that was the best. So I
Totally.
think I'm gonna say in September I designed a wedding at the Ayana Hotel in Bali. And I was just so I saw the space and the bride had an idea before we got there of where she wanted things to be, but she was kind and she let me come in and say, ooh, well, what about, I know you're looking over here, but just shift your gaze, and imagine this. And that one was really special because her family happens to own the hotel and they had this, it's a frangipani blossom, a frangipani orchard. And so frangipani is like, there's another name for that flower. I'm forgetting what it is, but it's like this super scented tropical flower. And there were probably like maybe 1,000 of these in this orchard, and they're all like sweet and smell beautiful. They've been planted perfectly, like this perfect symmetrical little orchard. And in the middle, there was like this stone platform. And I was like, you have to do your reception in this, like under the moon, surrounded by the frangipani blossoms. And so I think that's probably my last favorite one, just because it was just so epic. It's like, where do you find something like that? They're like mature trees, that sort of thing is really special to me.
Sure.
So
Do
yeah,
you have
I think
that on your website? I'm pretty sure I know what
so.
you're talking about. And, oh my God, are we ever going to get pictures of this?
Yes. Okay. So Corbin Gherkin, incredible photographer. She
Yes.
took pictures. I don't have the pictures on the website
Did
because I
she
think
do Naomi Biden's wedding?
she did. Yes, she did. Yeah. Yeah. She's done a bunch. I've done a couple cool things with her too.
Oh my God,
Um,
unbelievable.
which like I'm just like, oh,
Oh,
Corbin.
chills. Oh my God.
But it'll be up soon. I've got a reel. You can look at the reel. There's a
Okay.
reel on Instagram.
Perfect. I'm going to
Yeah.
link all your social and your website and all that, but I'll link the reel too, because I'm sure anyone who's watching or listening is definitely going to want to see that. So you definitely, I'm sure, curate a lot of really obscure pieces, not just for editorial, but I'm sure for weddings as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any secret or favorite places that you kind of shop around at?
Good question. I would say probably my number one is Etsy. Like I
Okay.
can find all the things I want on Etsy usually.
Yeah.
At Goodwill, to be totally honest. Like
Yeah.
I love me some Goodwill. Like Goodwill's great. There's so many
Yes.
things. I think the thing is, it's like as you're working on one project, you have a list of things you need.
Hmm.
So when you go to Etsy, you're like, I need A, B, and C for this.
Yeah.
But if you are just, as you're just like in life looking, you might find something you love. And I tend not to control myself. So I just buy one.
I love that.
In a reason, of course.
No, I love
But
it.
I tend to get things because I know, like, hey, this could be something I use like later on. And sometimes it even, I might have something and a project might not have like a theme or whatever. And sometimes I bring these things in. I'm like, what about this sort of thing? And so it could be something I have, it could be something I get, but I would say Etsy, Goodwill, any antique store, vintage stores, in general tend to be the places where I find things. And on Etsy, I just like heart everything. I'm like, I love
Yeah.
all of these things. And as soon as I have something that needs it, then I go buy those things,
It's the danger zone. It really is. And this is a kind of off tangent, but I'm so curious about the way your mind works because you're obviously an artist and a creative. But when you see something that you're inspired by, how are you logging that? How do you kind of propel that towards something that you're going to design for?
That's a good question.
Can you even explain that? Or is that just something that's kind of innate in you?
Yeah, like I think objects are so interesting. Okay, so I'm just gonna like grab something, okay, so I'm gonna like grab I have this like really beautiful, this is an actual picture of my great grandmother. And
Oh
I don't know
my
if you can
God.
tell, but this is like a little, like, I don't know if it was like ceramic or something, like beautiful little like antique frame that my grandma had. And
Wow.
so I think the way that I think about things is like, let's say I was inspired by this. I
Yes.
ask myself, like, what are the qualities of this? And that's almost what I was talking about when I said, like, think about the venue and ask yourself, what are the qualities of that? But
Yeah.
if I find something I'm inspired by, and let's just say this, for instance,
Hmm.
I would think, so what is it about this? Like, what is this? Like, if this was a person, and
Yeah.
I'll just totally forget the fact that there is a person in there, but like if the frame itself was a person,
Yes.
what sort of person would this be? And obviously there's like florals, and it's handmade and it's antique. So I would already start to say this is like somebody who enjoys the outdoors, like likes gardens. And then I ask myself more questions about this. Like, okay, so this is just a frame and I can see it, but if I closed my eyes and I smelled, like, what would this smell like? And part of that answer is like, okay, well, there's like brass maybe on the back, there are flowers, so that's kind of obvious. The flowers aren't like super saturated, there's like orange and white and red. And so I would ask myself, like, what sorts of scents do I get there? And maybe I would say, maybe citrus because of the orange. And I start to ask myself more questions about the quality of the object,
Yeah.
and that tells me something else. And in some way, almost the way that you see like a thought bubble, I would say this is the first thought bubble. And then I'm like, what else lives in this world?
Wow.
And that helps me understand like what else would go with this sort of thing. So
I'm
that's,
sure you know this, but that's not normal. That's incredible. That's
you.
very, very cool process. Do you write?
I do. I love to write. I love to. I
Okay.
don't do it all the time, but sometimes I do voiceovers, and that's like my favorite work because I do the voiceover on top of work that I've done, and it just like whoop, puts a
What
big
have you
bow.
done voiceover for? You have a great voice.
It's not very much. I do voiceover for certain projects, like if it's like a campaign where, whatever, if it's a collaboration I've done just to kind of explain the thing, not a ton,
Wow.
to be honest, but I love to do it.
That is so cool. That's really
Thanks.
neat. And just kind of what you were talking about, bringing the object to life.
Yeah.
That's a good segue into my next question. So, building an atmosphere is really kind of what wedding styling is about, right? So for a bride that's maybe on a budget,
Yeah.
how can she kind of bring in, or hey, those elements of a really memorable, beautiful atmosphere? I know
Mhm.
one thing for me, and tell me if I'm wrong or not, right? But you kind of touched on it earlier. Scent is so huge,
Yeah.
and when you were talking about the frangipani, I could just envision myself there. Even though I wasn't, I'm like smelling, I'm like, yes, yes, I can feel it. I'm here. But
Yeah.
how can someone who does have, a little bit of a lower budget kind of create
Sure.
that really magical experience?
Yeah, good question. Well, I just want to say, first of all, I don't think budget has anything to do with beauty, with experience, with anything. I mean,
Yeah,
I will be totally honest with you. It, I would not spend. I would. This is my house. This is where all my money goes.
gorgeous.
If I was gonna do a wedding, I would do. It would be tiny, and then I would put all the rest of the money in the house.
Oh, I love that.
So,
I love you're very smart. I had a 250 person wedding, so
oh,
I know.
big.
I have a lot of family. It was mostly family,
Yes, yes.
but
Oh, I
I
feel you.
yeah, it's that's the tough part, and I wouldn't change a thing. I absolutely loved my wedding, but there were a lot of sacrifices that had to be made because the guest count was so much larger,
Exactly.
and you're paying
Exactly.
exponentially. But if you can do it smaller, it's so much more special.
I agree. I agree 100%. I'm sure your wedding was amazing, and I don't know.
It was an awesome
Good.
party, and we had
Good.
a ball. But I think a lot of people, and we've been to certain weddings where it's just kind of this really special
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's doable, like,
mhm,
on any budget. And you're 100% right. Like, I think it is about the party, and it is about the experience. And I actually think, like, in answering your question, what you said about the fact that it wasn't like the most, the best whatever, day and whatever. I think we have a tendency to think about things in life, and I'm totally like getting on a tangent here, but like I think we have a tendency, especially, as people who sell weddings, right? We show this thing and it looks perfect, and it is perfect, and it's picture perfect, and the magazines are great, and the blogs and the Instagram posts, but the truth is it's a real day, real things happen, and guess what? There's going to be a day after, and a day after, and a day after, right?
yep.
So I think it's so important to start from the beginning as you're thinking about that question you have. How do you create guest experience? How do you make it magical? How do you make it special? And remember, this is a real day, you
Mhm.
know? And so if you're thinking about guest experience, for instance, what makes guests feel comfortable? And of course, they'll feel comfortable if you throw like $1 million at everything,
Of
but
course.
you don't need to necessarily. I think if you think, you know, carefully from the beginning about what sort of experience you're trying to give. If you think about what your budget is, it's like, what are your priorities? Is it
Yeah.
food? Is it music? Is it design? Is it decor? And, you know, for some of us, we would say like, it's all the things.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so hard,
We want
right?
it all. We are
But it's
simple
always,
ladies. We just want everything.
yes. There's always a way, there's always a solution, there's always like something where you can modify. So if
Yeah.
food is what you really want to spend a bunch on, you know, but you really care about design, maybe you modify the way in which you do the food, you know, or
Mhm.
the type of like reception that you have. And I know people don't like to think about like only doing a cocktail reception and not doing a full dinner, but of course, like if you've got like an amazing chef and you can do that sort of thing, maybe that's what you do.
Yes.
Or when it comes to design, I always think there's a way to make it lovely and create that sort of atmosphere you're talking about. And I think one of the biggest, you think, I mean, I guess I just think budget, and it's like, what are people spending the most on in terms of design? And number
Mhm.
one, it's going to be like rentals, you know, and you can get like the $10 chair, you can get like the $50 chair.
Uh-huh.
Maybe one's more comfortable. And I always think about, what do people see and use the most? And so I would always go there and say, okay, what's your priority?
Yeah.
And then within that thing, what's the thing that's going to be used and seen the most? And how does that impact the guest experience? Like, is it comfort because they're like able to be so comfortable in the chair that they're just like really enjoying this conversation with somebody?
Yes.
Is it you know, like the types of drinks you have and that they're so interactive and that the bar is so interactive that people are just like, you know, vibing and like, you know, they're feeling really awesome. I think there's a lot of, without like saying there's one answer, I think
Yeah.
you have to really think through everything and realize you have the choice with everything, you know, to be thoughtful. And I think also if we remember what inspires us like in our real lives, like if we went to a restaurant, you know, that we love and the atmosphere is just so vibey, like what did they do there? And
Yeah.
they probably didn't spend like $300 on each table centerpiece,
Yeah.
but it had like low lights and good music and, you know, a couple little candles and like good seating, quality glassware and silverware. And so if you
Yes.
ask yourself those questions, you can kind of get to a place where you kind of realize, hey, maybe all the things I expect I'm supposed to do aren't necessary to get to this end result, which is romance, comfort, beauty, whatever.
Yes, totally. And you touched on, guests' comfort. So this is a good segue into my next question. So this week I posted a TikTok that was like did fairly well. It wasn't the most, viewed thing ever, but it's still going in an argument. And this was like 4 days ago. I think there's
Wow.
like 500 comments of people arguing with each other about this. So I have
Wow.
to ask you because I'm so interested. I essentially said, I don't understand why people have such an issue with a color specific dress code. One of my friends was invited to a black tie neutral wedding,
Mhm.
and she was really pissed off because she wanted to wear a pink dress and was like, well, it's black tie neutral. That's kind of the traditional, that's the standard, and where you could go black tie festive, but it's not about you within reason. I think it's okay to ask
Yes.
for that.
Yes.
And people are livid. They do not like that answer. They were so mad.
Interesting.
Yes. So what do you think about that from a guest perspective or from a bride and groom's perspective of requesting a color specific dress code or requesting really anything of the guest?
You know, to be totally honest with you, I'm like maybe the wrong person to ask this question to, because I feel like, first of all, a wedding is basically 6 hours.
Yeah.
It's like maybe you show up at 4, maybe it's over at 10, maybe it's a little later. Like it's basically that much time. They eat one meal, they're there for a little while. Why shouldn't they just wear what the couple's asking? You know, like I
Yes.
understand that like a tux can be expensive. So if it's black tie and like, you know, your guests, and that's going to be cost prohibitive to some people.
Sure.
Okay, that's a, But if it's just a color scheme, you know, like that's fun. Like I want to be invited to events where they tell me what to wear because it's like, ooh, that's exciting, right? So
Totally.
I just feel like, I mean, again, going back to the time thing, it's the same thing about menu. I would answer in the same way. When couples are like, well, gosh, I'm vegan, but I'm worried because people are going to need to eat meat. I'm like, they need to eat meat for one meal of one day. There's 3 meals in a day. It's one
Yeah.
day. Give them vegan food. They're going to be fine. You
Totally.
know?
It's a bigger issue to maybe not have, any vegan option for a guest
Yes.
that you know what
Yes.
I mean? But I agree with you
Yes.
100%. Or some of the
Yeah.
things that people were saying, because I kind of likened it to a themed party or a costume party where, people are
Exactly.
gung ho to dress up. People are like,
Exactly.
who is spending that much on a costume? I'm like, I guess you haven't met me at Halloween. Like, I love a costume and a theme. Like, it's fun. Just get into it. And nothing has to be
Yes.
all about you and so serious. Just like
A
enjoy it.
100%. And I
Celebrate
think
with
that's
people.
that's the thing. Again, if you know as a couple that whatever you're going to say the guests need to do is going to be difficult financially for them,
Yes.
okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
But if it's outside of that, I don't see why guests should be stinky about it. I think it's fun,
Yeah,
you know? And I think
totally.
that's what it is. It's like you're going to their wedding. You're not going to your wedding. You can wear your pink dress at your wedding, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. When
Yeah,
it's your day, you get to make the rules.
exactly. Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so one thing I have to ask, and if it's like a no-go, there's NDAs, I don't know what, but you know what I'm gonna ask. Joe Jonas, Sophie
Yeah.
Turner, are
Yeah.
you able to speak on that at all?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Certain things I can't talk about, but that's okay. No, don't
okay.
worry. I'll just,
So
yeah.
yeah, you can answer. If you can't answer, just say like, "No, no thanks." But so that was such a huge wedding. I remember that being such a big deal because they kind of popularized that chic Vegas wedding into
Yes.
this elegant celebrity. Like people didn't know whether they were going to do it, and then once they kind of got word that maybe they were going to, everyone was on the edge of their seat because
Yeah.
it's Sophie Turner, who is everything. And, Joe Jonas, like the little teenager in me was like, it's so excited.
Yeah.
But, um, how did you kind of get in the mindset for that and draw the inspo for that wedding? Because it was just so gorgeous.
Thank you. You know, that really all came about as a result of working with them. Like
Yeah.
they're very, like I would say I am like, I'm not going to reveal my age, but I'm a little too old to have been like a Jonas Brother fan. But of course I knew his name and his face. And so when like the inquiry came in, I was like, oh, what's this going to be about? Like
Mhm.
I'm curious about this. And as soon as I met them, it was like so clear. He's an artist. He's
Yeah.
like such a design focused person. It was like we vibed immediately and went right into it, and he just wanted like something old world and like special.
Yeah.
So really it all came about because they had a really clear sense of what they wanted, and it was really easy to say, okay, cool, you're
Yeah.
inspired by this place, this sort of vibe, let me present like a million ideas to you based on that, and then we'll go from there. And so it was, whereas some clients are kind of like, oh, well, I think I like this and whatever, and give me options.
Yes.
It was really easy with them because they knew exactly what they wanted, and they're darling human beings. And so like
Oh,
that sort of design process was so smooth and easy and fun, and it was fabulous.
it's cool to hear
Fabulous.
that they are the way they seem. Um,
100%. Yep.
but it's interesting that you said that. It's probably so difficult to work with certain people, and you are the leading stylist in the industry. You're very coveted, and you probably have the opportunity to really work with or not work with anyone that you want. So do you find that if someone is just really kind of hard to draw out, does someone really need to have that vision before you even kind of give the okay to work with them?
No, not necessarily. They don't
Okay.
need to know. I think it's most important that they know they want something, right?
Yeah.
And if they know they like something, it's a little bit more difficult when people don't have any idea what they like about anything. And it doesn't have to be wedding or event related. Like if
Yeah.
they like, I don't know, do I like modern? Do I not like modern? Do I like sparkles? Do I not like sparkles? And then they keep changing their mind about whether they do or they don't. That's difficult.
Yes.
Um, but I have lots of people who are kind of like, gosh, I think all the things are beautiful. And so it's my job to kind of extrapolate and say, okay, cool, you're inspired by all these things. And it could be they're like, I love coffee. And I'm like, okay, cool. What's the coffee you like? you know, and like see from like the other things in their life what they like, and then say, okay, this is the sort of thing we can do with an event. So no, they don't have to have it all figured out. I frankly like to make suggestions to people. So the more they have figured out, like the less room it leaves for me. It's nice where like Sophie and Joe, they have like an idea of the vibe and the place, and then I fill in the blanks and I start to like paint that picture with all, you know, those sorts of things. So
Yes. Oh, that's incredible. And just on the topic of them, you said you were maybe aged out of the program of the Jonas Brothers. So I need to know your skincare routine because
oh, you're
I'm
so sweet.
staring at your skin and you look like you're 14.
I
It's
shouldn't get up too close.
no, come closer. Like this is unreal. What do you use?
Okay, well, first of all, I go to hot yoga. So I sweat a shit ton. Am I allowed to say
Oh,
shit ton? A shit
absolutely. Shit,
ton.
shit, shit.
So that I feel like that's like the best thing that anybody could do for their skin is just like get all this stuff out.
Oh my God. I'm
Um,
going to the sauna right now.
but you have incredible skin too.
It's not like yours, but thank you.
I mean, it looks great from here. But yeah,
Oh,
I do
you're
that. I
sweet.
have like a little peel situation that's just like some wipes. Dr. Dennis Gross,
Dr.
in case
Dennis
you're
Gross,
watching.
yes,
But
the pill pads,
the
yes.
heel pads,
They're great.
exactly.
They're
I
great.
use those, and then I just recently found the serum by Rose somebody or other, but it's like a complexion sort of thing. And to be honest with you, it's like those things are great. I don't usually do too much, but I've been trying a little harder, so I'm glad to hear it's working.
Oh
Thank
my God,
you.
gorgeous. Unreal. I know that's a tangent, but that's important for brides to know. I am obsessed with
It
skincare
is.
and the face is the base. You want to look glowing and gorgeous. So it's all
Yeah.
pertinent.
Amen, girl. Amen.
So another question I have, and this is kind of broad spectrum, but what is one thing that you just kind of wish brides or even couples knew when they were planning their wedding? If you could just impart one piece of wisdom to them.
You know, I think that's like going back to what you talked about the fact that this is an important day, it's a party, but there's going to be other days.
Mhm.
I think that probably it's letting go of the expectation, realizing this is a day and things will go right, and of course a couple things will happen that you don't expect. And really it's all about being present. And so like as you make your plans, asking yourself, what do I need to do so I can be present? Because like I said, if it's 6 hours, maybe you're lucky and it's 8 hours of your day where you're like actually doing the things. It's your memories and your experience with people. So I would say that's probably the biggest to me. And funny enough, as somebody who designs and works on all of these tiny little details, I actually think the couple doesn't get to see all those little details and experience those details as
Yeah.
much as guests do. And so where the couple sometimes has all of this stress about all of this stuff, definitely for guest experience, think about it, but remember it really will be like the overall experience, the overall everything, and that actually the little details maybe I am not the person to be saying this,
I
but
know, me
maybe the
neither.
little details don't matter.
They matter. It all matters, but it's more about like your feeling toward it. You can't, be this sourpuss and miserable and
Yes.
like everything
Yes.
has to be perfect. It could be
A hundred
perfect. And
percent.
if you're gonna be, a miserable biatch or
Yeah.
ass, it's not
Yeah.
gonna be a good day. It's really just
Yeah.
not. Most
Yeah. And
beautiful
also
brides are happy brides.
stressed, if it stresses you out, if you end up spending too much, if you whatever, it's like there are other things that are more important. I mean, I think in general, I think I shouldn't say my couples, but I think couples spend so much less time thinking about the ceremony than they do everything else. And
Totally.
that's what we're there for. Like that's what it's
Totally.
all about. I would love to see ceremonies be more emotional and longer and more important,
Yeah.
I think it'd be really special.
Yeah,
So
people hate ceremonies.
yeah.
I'm biased I'll speak on myself, but I'm Catholic, so it was
Yeah.
important to my parents that, we have a Catholic ceremony and we got married in a cathedral in Philadelphia. It was gorgeous. But I
Mm.
really I didn't have to do a lot because it is so beautiful, but I really didn't think about the ceremony at all. My aunt sings in the choir, she picked the music,
Oh,
that
that's
was special
sweet.
that she sang, yeah. But I have to tell you, shout out to Father Gill. who was the worst? I mean, it was just so impersonal. And my husband and I were looking at each other during the ceremony. We were like laughing. We're like, when is this going to be over? This is so,
Oh,
so it's true. Like that is why you're there. And
yeah.
my ceremony was like the worst part of the
Oh
wedding.
no, I'm
I
sorry to hear
know.
that.
It's sad. I mean, it's all relative. Like the important thing is we're married and we had a great
Yeah,
day. And that's all that really matters. But you're right. Like it should be a more emphasis on the ceremony. And if you think people are
yes,
going to be, quote unquote, bored with it, you don't have to do a normal ceremony. Make it special.
exactly. Exactly.
What's
Yes.
something really cool you've seen in ceremony?
Hmm. Hmm. I want to say a lot of things that I've dreamed of that have never happened.
Can you share it, or are you like, no, that's save it. I'm saving that for a client.
No, I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, this is a really simple thing, but I would love to see more like nighttime ceremonies. I want like
Ooh,
a shitload of candles and like like an orchestra and like just that. Like that's what I dream about for ceremony. Like when I think about romance, I think we lose the romance in the ceremony, and the romance is why we're there. Like we fell in love. I
totally.
want that to be part of that. So like I want music throughout the whole ceremony, like even if it's quiet, because I want to be like feeling
Yes.
like that. So I would just say like that sort of thing. Like people, I think
Yes.
logistically it makes sense to do it during the day, of course, like when there's more light or whatever, but I would love to see just a little more thought and more romance put into it, so you bring yourselves back into that space when you have that, you make that union, right? Like
Yeah.
remember what like started that, like the flame that ignited that, and bring that romance into it.
It's so simple, but you're right. It's such a good idea. And I've never seen it. And any bride who even says, like, oh, we want to do like, we want to go into 12 or 1, like, we're going to do, 6 o'clock
Yeah,
ceremony. I'm like, oh, you can't. Like, the sun's going to go down. Like, so.
exactly. You're right. Your pictures are gonna be awful.
Are we, well, vampires need the sun to go down, but like, what are we that we can't like be outside
Yes,
where we can do that? There's
yes,
light, there's candles, there's artificial light. Oh my God, that's such a good idea. So I have 3 kind of like fun questions, but just on a
yeah,
personal level, I need to know because I am such a huge fan of a lot of the brands that you've worked with, Dolce Vita and obviously Barge I mentioned, but
thank
I didn't
you.
realize that you created a line with Bella Bell. I thought that you just did styling with that. What was
Yeah.
that like?
Yeah, that was really exciting. I think so I started, actually that's how I started with them. Funny enough. I reached out to them to ask to use some a long time ago. My goodness, I think I've done, what is it, 7 campaigns with them now. I think I reached out
Wow.
to borrow some shoes for something a long time ago, and they're like, "Yes, and we'd like to talk to you about something," which was like so cool.
Oh
And it
my
really,
God.
I think designing those collaborations with them just gave me the opportunity to be creative in a different way.
Yeah.
Um I think for any creative person though, if you're creative, you don't just do it one way. And if you
Mhm.
do it for work, maybe you do it one way, but then you have all these other ways that you're like creating and making things. And so that was cool for me because it was like, oh, this has to be a product. Number 1, so like what will sell. Number 2, like the factory has to make it. How do I communicate my ideas to the factory? How do I see see the swatches, look at the things? How do I go through the revision and the design process? All of those sorts of things were really, really cool. And so yeah, so I love product and I love shoes, but I
Yes.
love designing and collaborating on product. It's been really cool.
Yeah, because that is, I mean, when you think of wedding shoes, I think like obviously Bella Bell, Jimmy Choo, and
Yeah,
Badgley Mischka are like the 3 that come to
yeah.
mind. That is, I mean, it's huge that you did that. You must be so proud of all of the work that you did. Just, I know, I'm sorry, I'm like being embarrassing, but
No, you're fine. You're sweet. And I am. And you know what? I think it's like it's important in life to celebrate that and remember that, because I think a lot of us, like, we have goals. And dude, I like thinking that I've designed like how many shoes? That's like, there's no way thinking like 10 years ago I would think that I designed shoes. Like that's
yeah.
insane.
And
So yeah.
you reached out, you just went for it. Like that's off topic, but it's so important to just like, that's how I felt when you responded to me. I was like, oh, Joy Parker's going to come on
Aw.
my
Aw,
little
thank you.
podcast.
Well, I'm so glad you asked me. No, I think you're touching on something so important, and it's not something you asked, but just like unsolicited advice, be optimistic, go for things. You usually don't get the things you don't ask for, so why not ask and just try? I
Totally.
don't know. I think that's the secret to success, like blind optimism. And maybe
Yeah.
not blind. It's like it comes from somewhere. You know you're going to work hard. You know you're going to work more than you think you're going to. You know you're going to, like whatever, the cost might be pretty crazy, not
Yeah.
financial cost, but everything else.
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh,
Go for
I
it.
love it. I love it. That's such good advice. It really is. All right. So for the fun questions, this is kind of how I always end
Nice.
with this little like fire round. But if you had to recommend one honeymoon destination, where would you
Mm.
recommend?
Africa, don't even like, no question. But then I have to be specific. Okay.
Yes,
Africa.
please get
I would
specific.
say South Africa. So South
Okay.
Africa, because it's so big, it is so diverse. You can do safari, you can do beautiful tropical beaches, you can do wine country, you can do city life if you want to, you can do rural areas. South Africa.
Do you have any specific destinations, like any cities or resorts or any kind of thing that you would recommend?
I would say you can fly into Johannesburg or to Cape Town. In
Okay.
Cape Town, I would go to Stellenbosch wine country for that. In Cape Town, there are so many places you can go and so many things you can see easily. If you stay anywhere in Cape Town, you can drive around to any one of these places during the day. There are penguins on the beach in Cape Town. It's cool.
Stop it. Oh
Yes,
my God.
it's like warm water. It's not like Antarctica. It's so cool. It's
What?
so cool.
Oh my God. Okay. Now I'm like, we're going to hopefully we keep pushing the trip back because of different things, but we're supposed to be going to Italy in September now. But I'm like, maybe we go to Cape Town.
You should, because actually, like if you buy the ticket and do it, like if you just do a stopover versus
Yeah.
doing another thing, it is so affordable. Go to Cape Town. There's a place called Babylon Storin, and it's like this incredible garden in this incredible area. There's this hotel called the Mount Nelson Hotel, which is like pink. It's literally all pink and gorgeous. And
My dream.
there's so many. You have to look up Cape Town. You're gonna just
Okay.
go. God, it's
Oh my
amazing.
God. Okay. I'm so excited. Okay.
Yeah.
Next question. Your dream cake flavor, what would it be?
Ooh, I like this question. I don't get to eat the cake a lot, so I love this question.
Yes.
I'm a lemon person. I would say like lemon cake, some sort of rose flavor because I like rose. I love
Mm,
pistachio and rose together. And I don't know if all these things make sense, but you said dream. So
yes. Yes.
lemon,
Do a couple
rose.
tiers, maybe like a
I
lemon
like that.
raspberry and then a pistachio rose.
I like that. I also really like cream cheese.
Mm.
So maybe some cream cheese frosting or
Oh my
something.
gosh.
Yeah, I think some combination of those things together would just be so good.
That sounds so good. Oh yeah, rose. I always forget about that. Such a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. And then third one is what song do you need to hear at a wedding? Whether it gets you up dancing or it's just like really romantic and gives you the feels.
Oh, good. Ooh, that's a good question. That is a hard question to answer. I'm like, do I go like fun where everybody's gonna shake their booties, or
You can
do I
pick
go
more
like
than one.
romantic? Oh, okay, well, I really like the song Electric Feel by
Love that
MGMT. So
song.
that's like a good like but
So
then all of
good.
those like 80s, 90s songs like really get people going. I would say some like Whitney Houston, like I want to dance with somebody.
Mhm, mhm.
Definitely good.
Totally. Oh,
Um I'm trying to think of like a slow song. Oh, you know what? I had a bride walk out to a song by Bon Iver a long time ago, and I was just like, this is the most beautiful ceremony song.
oh,
So I would say, I think it was like For Emma. It was like For Emma by Bon Iver, and it was just like, oh, and it was like outside, and there were like these mountains in the backdrop, and everybody was crying.
oh my
So
God.
maybe something like that.
I am such a sap. I have chills like all over my thighs. That is so beautiful. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Well, Joy, this was so fun. And I just wish I could
Good.
keep you all day and talk to you
Oh, thank
forever.
you.
And I just
Thank
so
you.
appreciate you doing this. This is wonderful.
No, I'm so glad to do that. This is fun. I was just realizing as I was like, ooh, how do I get cute from here up? I was like, oh, I haven't done this like maybe for a year or something. Like after the
Really?
pandemic like slowed down, I've been doing things in real life. So I'm like, ooh, am I gonna be good in my laptop on my thing? But
I
I'm
know.
so glad to be able to do it.
Oh. Well, Julie, thank you again, and I hope to connect soon.
Yeah, that sounds good. I can't wait to hear all the things.
Yes. Bye, Julie.
Take care. Bye.